Venture hustles, this is venture hustles. Turn nothing to something, start a business, get it jumping. Ay, told myself that I would make it and I'm never quitting. Staying motivated and I started with a vision. Yeah, venture hustles, life is really what you make it. Building up your brand is whatever you create it. Really ain't no limit, you just gotta love it. Working day and night, it's all about the venture hustle. Ay, venture hustles, time to take it to the next level. Let's go.
Well, welcome to the Venture Hustles Podcast, Episode 2. This is Saj, Jack, and Horton, and we talk about all things tech, startups, businesses, entrepreneurship. And today, we're going to talk about how to start a company and a business and a startup, necessary steps that you need to take, things to avoid, and all of the tools that you would need to get started for and aim towards success.
Yeah, and then also, some lessons, along the way.
As well as an example.
Yeah. I think also, like, something good would be, like, some, whether it's YouTube videos or books or whatever it might be that, I know I can name a couple off the top of my head that helped me for sure, Yeah,
absolutely. I think it would be, obviously just as kind of like a note here for everybody, it's going to be impossible for us to cover every single thing.
Yes.
But some of the foundational things, and I think we're not, today our goal is to go back down to the roots of like all the way down to the ground level.
Yeah.
And just some of the more initial steps that you would need to take before, while you're getting started and while you're getting up and running. In the future, we could probably talk more about establishing a business and getting, to talk about scalability.
Yeah.
But yeah.
If anything, definitely, if we leave out anything, drop a comment, we'll review them, and then we can touch base on them in the future.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and if you're watching us right now, you can kind of see that we're a little bit more casual today.
Yeah,
right?
I was kind of going to mention that too, yeah. I think one thing when building, I think this would be like a good segue, right? Like one thing when building like a startup, like for me, like always just want to be like yourself, right? Yeah. Obviously now, if you don't want to do things that are unprofessional and if you're rough around the edges, sure, you want to clean that up. But in today's world, like you be yourself, and that's where you start to build like really valuable relationships that actually flourish into something that can help you down the road.
Well, yeah, I think you absolutely have to be authentic. That's for sure.
Well, so if that means wearing a sweatshirt instead of a suit and tie, then go ahead and do that. You have a guy like Gary Vee who shows I've never seen him in a suit and tie, right? And again, I guess second shout out of Gary Vee. But again, just from what he wears, like there's so many people, Mark Zuckerberg, there's so many people that...
I think one thing to note, though, is that when it's time to be presentable, these guys are presentable. Even Gary Vee wore a button down when he did presentations.
I was just going to say, Horton can agree and disagree, but
yes.
That's
there's
why...
a time and a place.
Exactly.
For sure.
Right.
I'm about to agree and disagree.
For sure.
What we're trying to say is where this was all planned. And
we wanted the Zuckerberg approach.
The Zuckerberg effect. We're talking about startups here, so we're in our hoodies. So you wanna kind of should we talk about a little bit about why? I think what we're gonna try something a little bit interesting today, where we'll kind of do like a role play scenario and like a play scenario of from a startup's perspective, as if we were to start one, and like what each of us would do, and kind of go on the steps needed to be taken, right?
Yeah.
I guess we can start talking about why would you even start a business, right? What would you say?
It's like a loaded question, I feel like, but I think there obviously are like a bunch of reasons. I think the first one would have to do, I think probably like the two more popular ones would be two things. Number one, money, the ability to generate as much money as you want, and then two, free time,
So freedom.
Yeah.
Just being your own guy, having financial freedom.
Yeah,
having
for sure.
Freedom from time.
But the thing is, in the beginning, it's quite the opposite from a time standpoint and even monetarily standpoint.
I think let's break it down. I think it's important to make a clear distinction here of what we're talking about, right?
Okay.
If you're talking about starting a general business, which is, let's say you want to start a commercial business or you want to start a cleaning business. That's something that's already been done before. And you want to create one. It's kind of like buying a franchise, right? In a way where, like, right. But coming up with your own brand, having your own way to do it, putting your own money in marketing, and creating something where people would use like a professional services business, kind of, right? FFP is a professional service business at the end of the day. And we're constantly trying to innovate with tech, but when we started, it's not like we were the first ones to do it, Yeah. So there's that type of business, and then the other side is, let's talk about, is traditional startups, right? Like startups are typically, and at least in tech, are ideas that have never, like, either been reinvented or have never been thought before, a solution to a problem, etc. So I think we should break down both, right?
Yeah.
So let's answer that based off of the first option, which is like a traditional, let's say, professional services business.
Okay.
Let's use that as an example, or goods, whatever.
Sure.
Or like a traditional startup.
Right.
Right. So what would you say? Like, why would you start why would you start a?
I think there are two main things, which is, one, there's a personal question to ask yourself to see how serious you are, and pretty much you need to determine, is it actually a business or a hobby. The second part is, what problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah.
For viability.
That's the key. Well, which one was this? What was the answer for this? Like, was this for the first, the second? Is this for the startup, you're saying?
Oh yeah, it's a startup. Okay, You're actually going to look and
create something new.
Exactly.
Like, are you solving
innovate.
A problem?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think for, let's say, like a professional business, I think kind of like what Jack was saying, which is obviously being financially free, having a lot more freedom, being more in control. Those would probably all be viable answers of. Like, why would you start a business on your own?
Yeah, for both scenarios too.
Like, I'm sure you can say, and then you can say, you guys can probably resonate with this, which is, there are so many people that we meet that have, like, kind of gone and gotten a degree and things didn't work out, and then they're like, okay, I'm starting my own business.
Yeah.
I'm like, I was kind of good at this, I was kind of good at painting, and I'm gonna, like, do this. We've all seen this, right? In all walks of life. And those aren't people that are coming up with, like, crazy innovative ideas of a startup. Those are just regular people.
Yeah, they're starting a business.
Starting a business.
Yeah.
Or at least getting out of their 9 to 5. Some find out if it's a business or a hobby down the road. The intention might be business.
See, but that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
People that are trying to get out of the 9 to 5, and if they have that mentality of, like, okay, I'm getting out of the 9 to 5 mentality, they don't understand it's 24/7.
Yeah.
It's never a 9 to 5 anymore. It's 24/7. So if you're trying to get out of that, you have to kind of remember that to get it up and going, like up and running, and just like
well, that's one of the biggest adjustments too. Is getting it up and going. It's like there's no, okay, dink, I'm off the clock kind of thing. I think
you're never off the clock.
Yeah, I mean, and even personally, that was one of the, like, larger struggles for me. Like, let's say with my, like, one of my first startups, was that it's like, all right, time to take a break a little bit. And again, like, breaks, obviously, like, we're all human. We need to kind of unplug for a little bit. But every day, it's not like you're working 8 hours every single day from 9 to 5.
So let's, I guess what we should do is since I said it's cleaning business, let's try to combine both, right? Like, as a use case scenario, and talk about the journey of the initial steps of, like, how could somebody get started, right? So let's try to use a scenario of, like, someone thinking about revolutionizing the cleaning business. Right,
Okay.
I'm talking about commercial cleaning, cleaning offices, cleaning houses, just cleaning supplies and things like that. Someone, let's say, has come up with a very innovative way
Let's just say, like, an Uber type model for cleaning.
Let's say that's never been done before, which it has.
Idea.
Yeah. Like Uber, let's say, let's say including tech, someone has kind of figured out a way.
What about build a mobile app where you connect someone that wants to, have their house cleaned with, let's say, freelancers that, like, hey, like, I'm available. Like, let me.
See, that's the thing. I think there are platforms that exist that do that right now. Yeah. So let's just say that
that didn't exist.
That didn't exist.
Yeah, for the sake of this example.
For the sake of this, so Jack, what would you? Let's say you, me, Horton, we're all a group of friends. What would you? And
wait, we're not a group of friends already.
In this world, we're a group of friends. But in this world,
in this
particular scenario, we are part of this project.
Well, I think going like back to what Horton mentioned briefly, one of the first things is, okay, what problem are we trying to solve, right? And in this case, people clean, right? So now it's about, okay, now the question becomes, why would someone want to pay us for us to now clean their house, right? So maybe it's a time thing, maybe it's a cost thing. I would say if you're hiring someone to clean your house, that individual is probably very busy, and they don't have the time to do it, right? So I would say those are two things you want to focus on, right, as a core. And then, once we kind of get past that, it's like, okay, branding, how do we want the brand to look? What's the name? I think a question to be asked to kind of get both of those answers is when a potential client, customer looks at my brand, my website, my app, my logo, how do we want them to feel? Right? From a cleaner's perspective, right? Things you might want to think about. They're going to be in your home, right? We're going to be in their home. So that is a lot of, for a lot of people, that is their space. That's not something they want to open up to the public, right? So with that being said, trust is going to be a big factor in that case. So you need to be trustworthy, right? Now, obviously, as a business that's just starting, you're not going to have any referrals. Right, you're not gonna have anyone's like, hey, call Nancy down the block. I clean her house. So it'll be important to be, maybe a little bit more upfront with that, and just try your best to be over the top so that you can earn their trust initially. The other side to that is, and I know you guys can attest to this when starting a new business, from a cost perspective, experience isn't really going to be one of your advantages compared to the guy that's been doing it for 10 years. Probably cost will be. So your costs have to be a little bit more minimal in the beginning. The margins won't be high. But again, you're starting out.
Well, we've dealt with this in our professional experience as well, like where we've worked with different vendors in different places where they don't take a hit on costs and they're trying to maximize their profit. Yeah. And that is a horrible, horrible way to kind of go about things, especially when you're not, like, scalability is not anywhere in your mind at all. Yeah. You're only thinking about the immediate profits that you're trying to take, but you should limit that, maximize
you need customers
growth.
To buy the product first. Yeah, is at the end of the day, not just one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's circle back a little bit. So let's say you found a solution to the problem.
So outside of that,
it's a good idea.
It's a good idea. So outside of that, for me, this is something I learned purely through experience. And this might be, if this is your first venture, let's say, or your second, whatever it is, it's important to establish two things, like a timeline as to, okay, when do we want to start taking on clients? So in other words, accepting money and then giving them the service, right? What does that timeline look like? And then also with that, what are going to be the roles of every single individual on the team? Okay. For me,
so let's say you've got me, Horton on your team, and just the three of us right now, right? What would you do? Let's go into the macro details of that.
Well, so let's say in terms of the roles, you want to be able to see, okay, what are the strengths of everybody, and then obviously play to those strengths. So for me, Horton is really good in terms of, from a structure standpoint, building out systems. He's good at organizing things. So, us three sitting here, I might suggest Horton start, do his best to build out some systems. He's also really good at kind of tracking everything. Other than that, Saj is really good with speaking with people and getting them in the door. And I think, at some point it's one of my strengths as well. So I think that, with that being said, it now is taking your guys' input and saying, okay, what do you guys think, right? Obviously, communication is going to be key in everything that you do. But
so let's say, how much time would you say we spend in the beginning? Or let's say we've got a really good idea and we need to, quote unquote, go to market fast. Mm-hmm. And when I say this is again, this is a tech startup term. If you're not familiar with what it means that your goal is to just kind of get out there before your competitors do, before somebody else thinks of the idea and thinks of it better, and beat you to market. Yep. So you want to go to market with your idea. And let's say this is an insane idea that we came up with, and no one's ever revolutionized the cleaning space before. Yeah. How much time would we spend in the beginning to, let's say, set up the corporate stuff, the legal, the business structure, the cap table,
would say,
things like that?
Well, there are going to be certain things I think you want to pay attention to, not just skip all the way, but, to say, maybe a couple of days to kind of get that through. I mean, in terms of from like a paperwork filing standpoint, you know, depending where you are, that's going to take time either way. Right, so just do what you need to do, get that out the door. You can do that in less than a week, I'd say. Yeah. And then after that, break out the Google Excel sheets, break out the Google Docs, and start doing your best to bring in some money.
So I want to add some more and get as detailed as we can while we can cover this. So let's say, to kind of add what Jack was saying, let's say we you know, a good tool for anybody that, you know, is not familiar, go to LegalZoom. Just Google LegalZoom. Yeah. LegalZoom is now expensive, right? So one good strategy that a lot of people might not familiar with would be just Google the service that you're looking for and type in the word alternatives. So LegalZoom alternatives, you'll find 5 of the LegalZooms that will charge 1/3 of what LegalZoom charges. So let's say to form an LLC or form an S corp or a C corp. LegalZoom charges you $750, right? I'm pretty sure it's something like $500, but let's say $750. Yeah. And you find an alternative company that charges you $250. You want to keep your costs as low as possible in the beginning.
Absolutely.
Because let's also start giving this a figure and a number. Let's say between the 3 of us, we've each put in $2,500 and we're equal partners. And we all have the same amount of responsibility. Let's try to keep things as less confusing as possible.
I would agree.
For the sake of argument. So $2,500 and we're all 33%, right? Equal partners, equal responsibility, and we're forming a multi-owner LLC, right? Or let's say we're forming an S corp. Sure. The goal is to raise more money, or C corp in the future. So let's say C corp. So now we have $7,500 in the bank to get the company up and running. What do? So keep costs as minimal as possible. So let's say there might be some trust issues or things of like, okay, I don't want to worry about this in the future, so let's get this incorporated and let's put in all of our percentages and ownerships in there, so it's there in the file. Like when you file this is legal. Even if you don't have a contract in place and you're just paying $250 to an LegalZoom alternate company, it's out there. No one's going to rebuke that.
Yeah.
Of course, also try to put a contract in place. There are a lot of free templates that you can get started with. What I'm trying to say is a lot of people spend a lot of time in the beginning getting caught up in all of this
muck.
Yeah, I was going to say nonsense, and the reason why that would be a harsh term is because I think it gets very easy for people to get lost in the idea and the facade of like, we're starting a business. This is cool. Like, this is going to be dope. This is next level. And people get caught up in that hype. Like, think about Venture Hustles as an example. How much time do we put into that? Like, it was not like we've been thinking about the concept, what it was going to be about, what we were talking about, material, rather than a lot of this other structural stuff, right? And even some of our other projects that we've been recently working on, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of people get caught up in that, and it takes up a lot of time, and it wastes a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I would strongly advise against that. What would you say?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, one of the things I just want to touch on, because you had mentioned like, definitely like, for example, like do the cap table for those of you who maybe are not sure what that is. It's pretty much just a breakdown of, you know, who owns what and what the percentages are, right?
It's basically an Excel sheet, and you're basically creating like, you know, let's say one of the tools that you would need is Google Drive. If you don't know what Google Drive is in 2022, that's insane. But
that is the backbone. I would even go out on a limb to say,
what
some of the like in like your neighborhood, some of the companies and businesses you deal with like might still use Google Excel for the bookkeeping.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
so like it's not for the for someone that's thinking of Google Excel.
I mean, don't
Microsoft
Excel.
Well, people don't realize like that's all
Google
in
Sheets.
The cloud now.
It's all the same to me. Yeah, Google Sheets though. Yeah,
Google Sheets. Yeah.
But
I mean,
like that's what I'm saying. It's efficient.
Yeah.
It's efficient. You know, you don't need a crazy software and pay $50 a month, you know, for a crazy software.
You don't need QuickBooks or anything.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
So let's reel it back, right? So let's say, because we're jumping in, I want to try to keep this as focused as possible. That we're talking about cap table, right?
Yeah.
So all the people that don't know what that is, if it's this, again, this is a startup example, right? So let's say cap table, Horton, you're in charge of putting that together. Bare bones, what would you do?
Essentially, then we have to split up the percentages based on what we put in, and then we actually do want to have an allocated pool if we want to bring investors in down the road.
Yeah, so maybe it might not be a good idea to have 33% each. Maybe it should be 25% each and leave 25% open for unallocated, not just for investors, but also future partners, people that bring in special skills and abilities that neither of us three have.
Exactly.
So that would be, and also if you end up getting a startup lawyer, one of the first things they'll say is like they'll advise you to restructure your startup to have an X amount of shares or percentage and an unallocated pool to basically leave for things that Horton just mentioned.
Yeah.
Right. So let's say we have that, then we got in. What else would you do?
I mean, we're in 2022. A website would need to be created. There's plenty of platforms: WordPress, Wix, GoDaddy. I mean, we're talking something $10 a month. You put something together.
So let's say
Let's
again,
be more real. It's more like, I think
the lowest WordPress plan is literally like $9.99 or something.
really depends on what you're trying to do, right? Like, okay, so let's say structure. I'm a big fan of like running a business or creating a business with a very structured system. When I'm creating a project, I create a lot of folders and organize things, and the team gets kind of crazy with all those things.
Like a crazy,
and you're not a fan of
stupid
that.
amount of folders.
Yeah, it gets confusing and gets lost sometimes.
Oh, this might be a good point. You don't want to be too organized on like that. It's like disorganized. So it has to be definitely a balance.
Yeah, I agree.
Horton's giving me like a little look right now, but I just know from experience.
That sounded like a whole bunch of mess.
Yeah.
What the hell are you talking about?
But let's say, I think on a base level, create a Google Drive for your business. Let's say the business is called, come on with a business name. What do we say?
Just use acronyms. This is the easiest one. SHJ, Cleaning Services.
Yeah.
It's the simplest one.
Okay, SHJ Cleaning Services. Go on Google Drive, set up a folder, make sure all of your teammates are on it, create an Excel sheet, create the cap table that Horn said. If you have any agreements, put the templates up, have everybody sign them, and then create a budget sheet. I would say that's one of the main and most important things.
Yeah.
In the budget sheet, put down everybody's numbers in there, how much everyone's put in. And again, I think one of the main things is setting up initial costs and then recurring costs, breaking that down so you know how much runway you have.
Yep.
Correct.
By runway, we mean how much money would be spent per month.
Correct.
Yeah.
And look, there's no perfect amount of what your initial funds should be, right? And you honestly wouldn't even know what you would need unless you've done an insane amount of research, an insane amount of market research, or you've talked to somebody that's in that space and have told you that, all right, this is exactly how much you need to set aside. So let's say you've not done any of that, and but you're just passionate, and you've got a passionate group of team members.
Is this something that you think like you should do? In terms of like market research?
What do you mean market research? Absolutely. But I'm talking about a lot of in-depth market research. There's a lot of initial market research you should do no matter what idea or concept you have.
I agree.
Like no questions about it. But I think that let's say you just don't have, like, again, you want to go, you've done your initial research. You don't see anything online, nothing on the App Store, no startups that have ever been created. And you're like, I need to go to market fast.
Yeah.
Let's say you don't have another 6 months to raise that, like, go work your odd job to save up that money,
right?
You just want to get going because you're passionate about this, right? There's a lot of different scenarios. So, and then I would say, let's say you've done the legal paperwork, you filed the forms for $250 or $300. Now you're a legal entity, you're a C Corp, SHJ Cleaning Services, right? And now
a little ring to
it. I would say then when you create your budget, iron out all the things that you were saying, which was kind of like all of the different components that you would need to create a brand, like a website, a logo. What else would you guys say would be needed, absolutely necessary to create the brand?
I mean, in today's age, some form of a social media presence, whether it's an Instagram,
that's a good point.
Twitter,
online presence in general.
For sure, because something also to think about in terms of thinking about what you will need to get started. You want to put yourself in the shoes of your customer, right? So your customer, you go up to your customer, it's like, hey, my name is Jack, I'm from SHJ Cleaning Services. Inquiring about, I'm not sure if you would like, if you want to get your house cleaned or if you get your house cleaned currently, whatever your sales pitch will be. You want to think about, okay, if I'm that person, what am I going to do now? I know the first thing I'm doing is I'm going on Google and I'm typing in SHJ cleaning services, right? So with that said, you want to be able to almost have all your T's crossed and your I's dotted. Website's okay. Instagram's good. Now again, SEO, like, it's okay if your Instagram has 10 followers and you got like 2 pictures on there. That's okay, but you need to have something.
You need to have some sort of start, like online presence, legitimacy. Again, if it's if we're talking about the traditional professional service route, there's so many things that you can do. Maybe you can make an episode out of that in the future. Because that's probably a lot of the general people that we'd be like kind of talking
you never
to.
Know.
But let's say more about just specific to the startup. It's more about building the tech. Like that's the idea, getting enough to get get funded. That's what. Let's think that route since that's his example.
Before even that, I think they need a mailing address and a business bank account.
Yeah, I was gonna mention the bank account's like one of the major things like we have.
If you don't have a bank account, you can't receive money. You don't have a mailing address, you can't receive mail.
Well, if you're a registered business and you have an EIN number, and if you don't know what that is, that's something that you probably need as well.
Employee identification.
So EIN/EIN, you need that number.
Once
you have that, you'd be able to create a business credit or business bank account, debit card, and a credit card.
But if you do that through LegalZoom or LegalZoom Alternative, you'll have that information necessary.
You can actually get an EIN number for free. So you can get that for free, but you'd have a slower time frame. You can pay these LegalZoom companies to get it expedited. But let's say let's circle back to what we were talking about, which is like a startup tech idea, right? I think we should do the alternative in a different episode for sure, because I think that'll be helpful and useful. But let's say for this particular example, we've got all this stuff established. If it were me and you, and we were starting this, I don't think I'd spend more than like a week on this.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Sometimes people spend a month.
These are all tasks.
Yeah, you're just burning yourself in paperwork.
There's no reason to.
The priority.
Yeah, take the week, do what you need to do. Creating the WordPress or Wix site will take a couple hours. You have to stay up late and get it done. But, like you said, a week, you're good to go.
Yeah.
So then now, let's say the main mastermind behind this idea was me, right? Let's say I thought about the idea and the concept, and everybody has basically brought this up together. You specialize in, let's say, design, and that's something that you like. Let's say I pitched this to you and you're like, holy shit, I can make something really cool out of this. And you brought it to life, and you were like, okay, this is the structure. This is how we kind of like make this work. This is the marketing plan.
Timelines, the deadlines, things, KPIs.
Correct. So let's say $7,500 is all we got. So the biggest thing that I would say, if your budget that's a tight budget, right, is setup and recurring costs, right? Let's say you've ironed that out and you figured out baseline, and you can add things to it as you figure out more things, right? You need an idea. You need a prototype. You need to basically be able to have it presentable enough for you to be able to pitch it to anybody that can kind of understand it within 90 seconds. That would be the main goal. If let's say it's the idea is a solution and it's a mobile app, right? But we're in the world of mobile apps at Final Three Productions. Let's use that as an example.
Okay.
Well, let's say it's a mobile app and it's a really sick idea and a concept. Now, obviously, it costs tens of thousands of dollars to bring an idea like that to life. But you can build a prototype, and you can create a prototype, which is, if people don't know what it is, you want to explain what a prototype is?
Yeah. So a prototype is, you can think of it almost as if a blueprint for your software. So this is really a place where we're going to design pretty much every single screen and frame that'd be present in the platform. So, for example, let's say we were doing something like Uber, which right now, we are almost. We would design what it would look like for, the customer to sign up and log in. We would design what it would look like for the service provider. In this case, it would be us three. What it would look like for us to sign in, get directions to the house, see what they ordered, whether it was just, vacuum, dust, clean the windows, or maybe something more crazy or less crazy than that, drive to it. Pretty much everything we would need in order to get to the house, deliver the service, and then pretty much exit and get paid. So from a visual standpoint, this is going to be the place that we're going to design these things. Typically, depending on, the project, the timeline can be, about 2 months, maybe a little less. But the overall goal here is to provide like a proof of concept, right? So that when someone goes through and sees this prototype or sees this design, it's like, oh, okay. all right, I understand what's going on here. I understand how it looks, the way it works, and then, that will serve as your blueprint to now move into the next step, which is the development of this thing.
Now that, to kind of like segue from like what you've said, that's the prototype. It's a visual representation of what your idea is.
Yeah, a
from
proof of
start to
concept.
finish. Proof of concept. $7,500 is a really tight budget. When I started my first company, I started with something like that. I quickly realized that it was not enough. This was when I was like 21. Over the years later, I poured almost $100,000 into my first idea personally. And I'm not saying that's what you need, but I'm saying if it's a tech startup concept where you need to develop it, you need coders. And again, we had in-house developers, so it was like different for us. But nowadays, a lot of people outsource solutions and whatever you can find. But let's say all you have is that amount. I would create a prototype. This is something that you can probably get at a rock bottom, like a good prototype for like $4,000.
Yeah.
And you'll still have $2,500 left. What I would do is I would put that into the budget sheet and then come up with all of the content. What's the elevator pitch? What's the overall content material for your project? What is this? Why? What makes you different? What is your IP? What is IP? Again, another technical term, intellectual property. This is, when you have IP that's unique, this is what you sell, right? This is what investors are going to buy into.
Right.
And I think, let's say you've got that ready and you only have $2,500 left.
35.
35, sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah, 4,000, yeah. I was keep thinking like 5. So now, I would say create a solid roadmap. Of course, you need a business plan from a traditional sense.
Don't spend too much time on the business plan.
Don't spend an enormous amount of time, but having a rough business plan would be good.
Yeah.
But a roadmap in the sense that if you're a startup, obviously $7,500 is not going to get you to a year, but an ideal timeline that you would need would be 18 months. This is the sweet spot that investors love to hear.
Yes.
You would need an 18-month runway and a timeline and a game plan of what are you going to do? How are you going to bring this to life? And I think, if all you've got is $7,500, you'd want to get as much exposure as possible, try to network with as many people as possible, go to as many events, whatever city you are. If you're in New York, if you're in Atlanta, it doesn't matter. There are a lot of free networking events, cheap networking events.
Now, I think something and although networking, I would say, is one of the most important things.
You're a really good networker, and you should probably drop some tidbits here.
Yeah, I want to say something first, and then we can get into that a little bit. But more so, if you're that guy or that gal has $7,500, right, or even less, $5,000, $4,000, the most important thing for you to do is start.
Yeah.
Just because it's to start. Just because you have $7,500, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't start.
Oh, yeah.
Because what happens is, you know what? I'm going to wait till I get $10K. And then your car breaks down. And then you got to spend, $2,000 to fix it up. And then something else happens. So take the money what you had, figure out how you can use it the most effective way you can, and get started.
That's the biggest thing is if you don't show up, that's that 90% of the struggle is showing up, right?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things that people look for if you're looking for an investor is that you actually tried something. If you're just sitting on your hands, no one's really reach out to help.
If you're talking about investors, of course they tried something, but they care more about how much blood have you put on the line.
Yeah.
This is true.
How much of your own blood have you put on?
What I'm really saying is effort. If you're just waiting around expecting somebody to come save you, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. But to kind of touch on your point in terms of networking, you never know what a simple hello, how are you can do for you a week down the line, a month, a year, and I really started to understand this as I grew kind of older and just got a little bit more seasoned in the space where, I started my first startup when I think I was 18 probably. It was an event planning business, right? And being that we're on Long Island, I used to do a lot of work out in East Hampton. Mm-hmm. So out there's a lot of people that pay you pretty good, right?
A lot of catering
to say the
halls.
least.
There's always going to be an event, weddings.
A lot of money there.
Yeah. So good idea. But more so, I understood the importance of networking when I was super young because, you know, the partner I was with at the time, he had, you know, somewhat of an established network out there. So we were able to go to certain venues and have good connections where it's like, okay, just bring someone here, like we'll get you in the door here. Or,
well, that's because like that's really good. Like if you have people that you're friends with, that can help you leverage and get you through those doors. 100% leverage that.
I mean,
but
exactly.
let's say more about, let's say you
if
don't
you're not
have that.
person.
You don't have that,
I
what
mean,
would you do?
I would even, I guess to kind of give a little bit more of like a tidbit, you know, that startup, that relationship didn't go well, right? And we'll kind of cover that at a later point. So, at, you know, 2-3 months down the road, that kind of door was shut. So I was at like kind of, you know, square one. So now, I'd say the most important thing, like for me in networking, and I think sometimes a lot of people like overthink this, but you want to go out there, be yourself.
Well, let's say what tools did you use, right? Because you're a new age networker, right?
Yeah.
Like what I had available to me back like almost a decade ago when I started like hardcore, like what you would do now in the last 2-3 years.
What I would do now?
Yeah. Like it'd be different from what I did. Like
well,
you're a lot more.
The first thing I would do, and this is something that I did probably like when I was like super young, like 18, 19. And if you're a younger guy,
like 5 years ago.
Yeah. It is 5 years ago, but not even that. If you're a younger guy like me, and like when you were in high school and middle school, like you had Facebook, you had Instagram, you had all the socials, you go on there and you clean that up, or just make a new one. I'd recommend cleaning it up.
More presentable. Okay.
Well, again, you know, if you're going to, you know, networking events or you're on these platforms where you can network, you don't want someone going on your Facebook page or your Instagram page and seeing things that you wouldn't want them to see, right? Yep. You want to be taken in a somewhat serious manner. Obviously, everyone likes to have fun, but obviously keep that in mind.
So let's say you've got your socials clean.
So that's the first thing I do. Socials are clean.
Yeah, online presence needs to best represent you.
Exactly. So now, outside of that, I'm going on LinkedIn, making sure I'm using LinkedIn to connect with people that not only in my area that are in the same industry that I want to be a part of. There's platforms like Bumble Business. You know, a lot of people, Saj was dogging on me, you know, with that for a while.
I didn't really know that was a thing.
You know, obviously, a lot of people are familiar with Tinder, Bumble, they're dating apps. But Bumble Business is a side to Bumble that's strictly for business.
Yeah.
So you can meet individuals that are in your area that are there for professional, you know, meaning. I can easily say I have a handful of people that I'm still in touch with today that I met there. Now,
really? Through Bumble Business?
Through Bumble Business. And they're local.
So back from my time, there's a reason why it's like important for people to know, like what obviously a lot of the listeners may or may not know this, right?
Yeah.
But like for me, back in the day, it was like meetup.com.
Yeah.
And it's still around now, but we did not have Bumble Business. That's why it's like when you think Bumble, you think Tinder, you think whatever, you know? Like,
I mean, I would say like if you're nervous about doing stuff like meeting people you don't know, like that's definitely a good start because you can kind of, you know, I'm not going to say hide behind the screen, but have that little buffer.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I would even still say, and you know, you guys can relate to this, but going to networking like events, if you look hard enough, you'll find a gazillion of them.
If you just Google them, you find a ton, right?
And they're free most of the time, right? I mean,
back in the day, it was like Facebook groups.
Yeah,
like you find
even still. I mean, Facebook groups
true.
like they're pretty good, honestly.
So I want to make this as
simple and straightforward.
As simple, straightforward, also useful to the listener. You've dropped in a lot of
you're good.
solid gems. I would say here's the thing, right? Now let's say you're not a people person. You're not good at talking. You're scared.
You better start talking.
But now here's the thing. It's easier said than done.
I mean,
but like also networking is huge for startups. It's one of the most like pivotal, like important things that you could absolutely need to be able to have a successful, like build successful relationships, leverage them.
Yeah.
What would you give like as some pointers if you're a shy, reserved person and you're scared? You're like, oh man, I have to network. I just don't know what to do.
I mean,
say hi and don't run away.
Say hi and don't run away. But I mean, for the person that, you know, like let's say you're the guy that booked a ticket to a networking event. Now you're in your car and like you're super nervous. You know, I would say ultimately, like be yourself. Never be something that you're not. I would say keep that in mind, and just be friendly. I would even also say that a lot of times when you go to these networking events, like keeping in mind that everyone's there to do the same thing. So you're not going to meet someone that's, kind of like an asshole to you and like not being friendly, So that's always something to get in mind. Everyone's there on the same page. But also, like, especially if it's in person, definitely have an idea in terms of like what your goal is, like by going there.
Like have a goal, have a game plan in mind, but also don't make it too sleazy. You can't make it too sleazy and just like make it all about yourself. I mean, that's
about like the authentic, like being authentic. But have a goal. It's like, okay, whether it's I want to meet, XYZ person, or, if you're in a place where like, who's going there and like there's certain people where, like that you want to meet, then you go ahead and you kind of are in a place where you kind of navigate to them. I've been at places where it's like, okay, I know, this person's going to be there, this person's going to be there, this person's going to be there. And I made it a point where like I want to talk to these people. Now, obviously, you don't be weird about it, right? And go up to them and be like, hey, blah, 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 and start speaking a mile a minute. But, again, like having some sort of social presence, again, people are there to talk with people. So find your way there and have a conversation.
We definitely probably should dive into this more because I think that's a huge part of like, startups and things like that.
But before we move on, I think one thing to keep in mind is that rather than be weird, or there was something else you said that was along the same lines. Yeah. Basically, know how you can add value to that person's life that you're looking to talk to.
100%. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Add value to their lives. I used to, like, this was, like, I was never really, like, an introvert. Like, I was always, like, good with talking to people. But when I first started going to these networking events, I was nervous, right? Yeah. And, like, I'm 100%. Sure you can say the same thing. Like, I would, like, this is going to sound weird, but, like, I would, like, practice at home.
Yes.
Like, I
would it's not weird at all. We all start there.
Yeah, that's the thing. So, like, if you are not doing that already, I feel like you're kind of, like, already behind. Then just don't be afraid to be rejected. Don't be afraid of rejection.
Yes.
Just like, going out asking a girl, like someone that you meet at a bar or somewhere else, wherever, right? You're going to go out and ask them out. You can't be afraid of rejection because there's a 90% chance you will get shut down. It's the same exact idea.
I mean, it's a mindset thing. And instead of being afraid of getting a no, one thing that I always like to think of is every no is like every single no you receive, you're that much closer like to the yes.
To the yes, yeah.
And like it's all like mindset. Like I think for networking too, like it's like you want to be confident, obviously, and like that's also comes into like how you feel about yourself. Not to kind of go on like a mental health tangent, but you want to be confident with yourself, what you have to offer, what you can do for someone. That kind of plays into like the value standpoint. Yeah. Be yourself, be confident, be friendly, add value as much as you can.
Yeah, I would ask a lot more questions to the person about them than like kind of just like making it about yourself. Like you kind of have to make that.
Yeah, people never get tired of talking about themselves, so they make it more about themselves or anything. But a wise man once said, proper preparation prevents poor performance. So be prepared.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
100,000%.
I would.
Don't be afraid to take risks, honestly. Like, who cares if you're talking to Joe Schmo and like you fumble your words? Like, turn around, laugh it off, go speak to Sally.
Unless it's like something very embarrassing, people won't even remember.
No.
99% of the times, they're more worried about themselves.
Exactly. Just be yourself. But more importantly, like, and this is all something like from a networking like aspect. I know we've kind of spent like a lot of time on this.
We did.
But I guess last but not least, like never completely like shut a door.
That's true.
So, like you never know ever when someone that you met 2 years ago is now like, you know what? I met John. And, he owns a detergent company, Saj, and like now we can use him as a supplier for our cleaning business. Like you never ever know. You save that phone number. Yep. For me, like my memory's kind of bad, so I'll put the name, I'll put their first and last name and like in the first. I'll do the emoji, but first and last name in like the first name spot on the iPhone, and then it says company. I'll put where I met John at Starbucks here.
And you can also add notes. There's a note section and a contact too.
Yep. So I mean,
I was gonna wrap up this segment with that. It's that I've networked with people over a decade ago that I still talk to and I work with, and I've been able to tap into. They've reached out to me for different things, and I've done vice versa. Like, and I am nowhere near as aggressive as I used to be when it comes to networking and meeting new people now. Yeah. That's why I wanted to focus in on Jack on this because he did that a lot in the recent years. But I mean, best believe like that's one of the most crucial things that you never know you'll need, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess to kind of wrap up this area, like networking is really important. You want to be able to maximize. I think we can dive more into like more in-depth stuff of what you can do as a tech startup in the future, and maybe in a future episode. But come up with a roadmap, a timeline, start putting the word out there, get your pitch ready, get a deck ready, like a presentation deck and a pitch deck.
You never know who's a visual learner, an auditory learner, so you want to have both.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you book a meeting with a VC or like a VC firm, like you're going to need those things, those materials. You're going to probably need it to even email it out. Those systems don't change.
Yeah.
But again,
won't take the meeting without seeing a preview.
Well, that's the thing. Like the reason why I say this is because it's not like you don't have to start because you have $7,500, but these are things that you can do for free to get started, to get going without a lot of capital, a lot of overhead ahead, like up front.
Yeah, and I think something also to keep in mind, like we're in 2022, freaking Google it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Or YouTube.
Google it. Or YouTube. Like literally, Google it, YouTube it. Like we might have missed a couple things, right? I'm sure we did. There's plenty that we missed or didn't talk more into detail. Yeah. But literally Google it.
Well, you can Google it. You can find a lot of the tools, but like a lot of people just don't even know like where to start. And there's a lot of information when you Google something, you're going to get overwhelmed by it. But I mean, there's no perfect way to do it. There's no perfect way to start. You just have to start and like I like to start a lot more structured, a lot more systematic because I'm a very results numbers based guy. So kind of like I guess a good way to wrap up this episode would be like, what are some expectations, some things that people should keep in mind, when they're starting it, like just like that they're not anticipating that they won't know until they do it. Like how should they prepare their family members or just like their lifestyle and like how things like that. Like for me, like I'll go over me later, but like what would you say? What would you do?
Go ahead, Jack.
I mean, obviously I don't think it's like an announcement, right? That it's like, hey, like I'm doing this, like peace. But like I think the reality is that there's gonna be time that you need to dedicate like to the startup or the company, but ultimately like it just comes down to like sacrifices really. And so that are we good? Check.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, cool.
Shout out to Emil.
Yeah. But I think it just comes down to like the sacrifices. Like how much are you willing to sacrifice? That could be time. That could be a party. Like that could be like anything, And I listened to there's a guy named like Dan Pena.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with him.
Uh-oh.
You know who that is?
Yeah, he's sus.
He is called like the $1 trillion man, and like he's so like cutthroat.
Are you a fan?
I would say like I'm like a casual fan.
Do you know who this is?
Yeah.
Why?
Are you a fan?
He's cool.
Why?
No, just.
Why you have like
Are you a
comments?
fan?
No, I'm just curious.
I need something on that.
Are you a fan?
Absolutely not.
Why? Why?
Let's just say keep it PG. He's a bit of a wild card.
I think that's
a lot of
thing.
his philosophies and like a lot of his ways of doing things are
not good.
It just doesn't apply to this day and age.
Okay, so
he is old school.
He's old school, but I guess with that said, I guess like some of his like I guess content that he pushes on Instagram, I can see why you say that. Mm-hmm. It's very in your face, and sometimes it could be like it's definitely like can be offensive at times.
Here's the thing, right? Like I've learned to be able to people just don't. Like people absorb what is pushed in their face.
Yes.
Very clickbaity.
Yes.
Very like here's a cut. Here's this cut.
Yeah.
Like this is like. Do you realize like he doesn't live his life like that? You know that, right? Like he's pushing that content because it works.
It sells.
And it doesn't. It's not effective in this day and
even more so. What is effective, right? Which is something that he had says, and if you listen to people that have some sort of success. There are going to be sacrifices that you need to make. You're going to need to miss, the birthday party. Mm-hmm. You're going to need to miss, as tough as it is, like maybe that anniversary or whatever it is. And I can ultimately like he doesn't like that one.
No, I don't disagree.
Yeah, but
I just think
go ahead. I want to share your thoughts.
No, you're good. I agree with you.
I think the button this all up, since y'all can't decide, is essentially, I think the people who need a heads up are either your significant other and kids, or like immediate family members. Everybody else, pretty much, they're not going to take care of you if things go south.
Well, it doesn't matter. All depends on the situation. If you're living on your own, that's the easiest way to do it. If you're solo, you're not committed in a crazy relationship, long term, like you're good. If you are in a long term relationship, or if you're engaged,
it's definitely a conversation that needs to be had.
Conversation. Like if you have kids, like there are so many things that can go wrong if you don't balance your expectations or you lock down with the right person. It's really important that you have supportive people that like understand your vision, because what you're about to embark on is going to be an insane journey.
And it can negatively impact their lives to some degree.
Yeah. So if they don't sign up for it, and they're not kind of like
of that, like like the sacrifices. But I think it's a good point, that you bring up, is like the support system.
Yeah.
Like it's not. I would say typically like it's not like that large, and maybe 1, 2, 3 people. If it's more like,
it doesn't stay like that forever either. It's like I missed a lot of it in the beginning. Like for me in my personal life, like I've I miss those birthdays and the anniversaries. But like at where I am now in life, it's like I've tried to, even though I still miss a lot of stuff, but I still I'm a lot more present now with like family and stuff like that.
But going down like the startup route, like similar to what you just mentioned, like. You have to be willing to miss those sometimes.
24/7, 365. Like if you're not willing to commit to that, that you shouldn't even be in that space.
Yeah,
because someone anywhere on the other side of the world is working 10 times harder than you.
And the reality is that a lot of the people who are going to be complaining about the time missed are not on the same path as you. So it just is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what about like doubts and like problems that you think?
That's a good one. I mean, at a point in my life, like
are you talking about personal doubts or doubts from other people?
I think both.
I think both. What's the other option?
Doubts within yourself or doubt from other people?
Both.
Sure. I think self-doubt, would be maybe more, can have more damage. Yeah. Like I think, mindset is obviously like really, really important, so get to a place where, you're able to read books, listen to the podcasts that are like to support like what you want to do, like similar to what you said as to like why you don't like the $1 Trillion Man, where it's like the things that you hear, what you take in is what you like put out. Same thing, like, and that is directly correlated with your mindset. The books that you read, even the music that you listen to, the things that you listen to, things that you read. Like they will have either a negative or a positive, I guess, like effect.
Well, the $1 Trillion Man, Dan Pena, is like a boot camp mentality that I strongly like disagree with. I don't think that's the way that everybody operates. And it's like, and if you're gonna suggest something, and if you're gonna offer like self-help or just like any sort of solutions, like it needs to be able to.
I think it caters more to people that like need a kick in the butt. Would you agree with that?
I can see that, but again,
you don't agree with that.
No, I can see that. I don't. Do I agree with his method still? No, I just don't think that.
But do you think some people need that kick in the butt?
I just think that there are always alternative methods that can be delivered, that can have a better delivery than the way he does it.
Okay. Ultimately, you have to find a solution that best meets your needs. Yeah. It's not really a Dan Pena yes or no. It's really
that's fair.
Yeah, that's simple. Find a solution that best meets your needs. That's not anything's for everybody. So.
Well, it's find a solution that best works for you, and also like, I guess to touch back on like self-doubt. If you're doubting yourself, this is all like a mental thing at the end of the day. Yeah. What we say on this podcast is not going to change that. Like, I mean, you can listen to all the self-help podcasts, but at the end of the day, if your motivation or your drive isn't there, if you don't believe your idea is worth it, or your concept or your vision is there, then nobody else in the world can make you believe that. Yeah. So however you get to that, you need to, like, obviously this is pretty cliche, but like however you need, whatever route you need to take, you need to get to that. Yeah. And in terms of others doubting you, like, what would you say with that? Like,
what would you say about that?
Oh, it depends on where they're coming from. If it's good faith, then, you can take it with a grain of salt. If it's other BS, well, fuck them.
Yeah, I mean, I have the same feelings, and I actually heard, I forgot what I was listening to. It might have been, it was a recording. I'm not sure if, like, he was on a podcast or not, but Jay-Z was like, I was listening to something like a clip or something by him, and he was like,
him and his uncle or the other one?
I'm not sure, but pretty much what he said was, people will pretty much try to
put their fears on, impose their fears onto you.
Impose their fears on you, and it's like, nah, man, like it worked out for you that way.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's gonna work out for me that way.
Yeah.
You know, and like that's a piece of the mentality like that you want to have.
Yeah.
I would also say like for me, find someone that they could be Jeff Bezos or anyone else in between you and him that you like that you aspire to be or like the traits of. Find someone find that person and look into them, listen to them. Yeah. That's definitely helped me like personally along my path. So.
As long as within good faith, I think everyone's gonna have general concerns. Back to your example, because he had another version of that where he was saying his uncle didn't believe what he could do, but it was really his uncle wasn't trying to wish bad upon him. It was just that he couldn't, to that point, he couldn't see it because of his life experience. But of course, Jay went to become Jay. But yeah, if it's like just people just hating on you, well, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, I think. You just got to use other people's doubts as motivation, and that's.
Let me. I want to know your opinion. Mm-hmm. And I know we're getting a little bit more time sensitive here, so it might be one of the last things we cover. But motivation. Mm-hmm. Brief. What do you think about it?
What do you mean?
In terms of, you won't always be motivated.
Okay. Like how do you stay motivated? What's the question?
I guess the question might be because like for me, I'm not really a big fan of motivation because it's for me the way I see it, it's not really something you can depend on. It's always kind of you go to a seminar, read a book, all right, you're on you're super motivated for a day, 2 days. Then what happens on that third day? So I guess would you mind speaking to that, Horton? I would love to hear your thoughts on that too.
What would you like?
I think motivation's a mistake. If anything, it's discipline. Quite frankly. I'll use working out, for example. I've been lifting, more than half of my life at this point. So let's leave that at that. Mm-hmm. But basically, there are some times where I don't want to go. I want to sleep. Yeah. But the discipline to keep doing it is how you see results. You don't look in the go work out the first day and then you see 6-pack abs. No, this takes time. You can check every day for 3 weeks. You're not going to see results maybe until 2 months later, where it's okay, now I'm starting to see some serious definition. Yeah. That's why a lot of times they track progress pics, because you can see it like a flip book over time. But it's really discipline. I think motivation is a cop-out, in my personal opinion. Everyone has different definitions about it or how they look at it. But at the end of the day,
it's a cop-out?
It's I'm not motivated today. It doesn't matter if you're not motivated today. That's why it's a cop-out.
You mean when people say I'm not motivated?
Yeah. I think that
Wait, what was your question? I thought your question was
Well, I guess that it was more of a general question, but I guess speak on motivation a little bit, or how you feel about it, maybe how you use it. Because I don't think I'm as I agree with some of the things Horton said. I'm not as far that side, but I think motivation is good as a tool.
I think
but
inspiration
you can't rely
helps.
on it.
Yeah, but that's why I get where you're coming from. I think inspiration helps.
Yeah.
But motivation, that's why I think it's a buzzword nowadays, because when you're disciplined about something, you're dedicated, it doesn't matter what you feel, you're going to get up and actually stay committed to what you actually said you were going to do.
Yeah,
Saj, where do you sit on what side of the table?
I think what he's saying, but I agree with what he's saying in that regard, but I don't think maybe I don't know if he's worded it perfectly in the sense that it was but I agree with you. Discipline and a system is very, very necessary for you to be successful at whatever you do. Yeah. It can be at least for me. It can be a messy system. Unless you're really, really lucky, it doesn't work. For me, motivation is really for me it's not a cop out. It's you're either motivated or you're not, right? For me that's I don't know if that's an excuse, but for me it's take a look at your life, take a look at your surroundings, take a look at where you are. If you're happy with where you are, then it doesn't matter where motivation is on that line. Okay. If you're not happy with where you are, then you got to make sure that is your central focus and key to driving that to that motivation to where you need to be, if that makes sense. If that lifestyle that you're living every single day isn't where you need it to be, use that as motivation. If that isn't what you're doing, then your focus, your purpose in life isn't aligned. Find your purpose. Find your why. If you don't know how to find your why, it's a set of questions.
Yep, I like that.
It's not a simple answer. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like, you have to follow the line of questions and find your purpose, find your why, find the motivation, figure out what needs to be fixed. At the end of the day, that's what it is for me, you know?
Yeah, I would agree with pretty much everything, that you said, but I think we can all agree that the feeling of being motivated is temporary and to use with caution.
And I don't think I worded what I said incorrectly at all. That's why I used the word inspiration rather.
Okay.
Because we can all, if we switch out the words, what you said, inspiration works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally. So that's why I don't really like the word motivation, because everybody they put their different connotations
And I agree
on it.
with you where, like, let's say you're on a workout sense, like if you're using motivation as like, that is a cop-out, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, even in life, some people are like, oh, I'm not motivated to get up and do this morning. It's not even just working out. I think working out is just a way to put it to something physically that we do.
Could be used as an excuse. I can see that. That's why I don't disagree with the point.
Yeah,
I was just thinking about his way he put that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I distinguished between motivation and inspiration.
To get there, but yeah, I just want to.
But
I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but
no, but like, to even address what you just said, right, which is like a temporary feeling. I know from a feeling perspective, I agree with you.
Yes.
But it will never, for me, it will never be a temporary state. It's a constant state of like, I'm not saying
inspired then.
Yeah. I'm not saying like I'm constantly motivated. You have your ups and downs, your highs and lows.
Yes. That's more so what I wanted to kind of touch on was that. But
but let's say you've completely lost motivation, then your purpose is off-centered. Like, you just don't know where you are going with life in general. So it's like, I think the bigger answer that you need to, bigger question that you need to answer is your purpose. Center that first. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people use motivation as a placebo to like get high or something type thing. And it's like, no, if like you said, if you're not centered on it and it's not something that's personally driving you to actually get to that point where you want to be, then you're pretty much off center.
Yeah, I think we kind of dissected the hell out of that, but I think it was pretty good. Find your why, what's your purpose. And along that path, you'll get inspired. When you're inspired, you'll become motivated.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think it's a pleasure as always sitting down with you guys and chopping it up.
Yep. That's episode 2. Of course, like, subscribe, comment. We'll
leave us some questions if you have anything that you want to learn about us or our process.
Yeah, feel free.
That's pretty much.
I think that pretty much wraps us up, right? So, like Horton had mentioned, subscribe. YouTube and Apple Music, Spotify, iTunes. We will be everywhere.
Yeah,
we are everywhere.
Anchor, you'll see all of the other platforms like Spotify. I think we mentioned everything.
Yeah, but
you'll find everything.
I guess
all streaming platforms.
We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time. So enjoy.
Yep.
Good night.
Peace.
Venture hustles, this is venture hustles. Turn nothing to something, start a business, get it jumping. Ay, told myself that I would make it and I'm never quitting. Staying motivated and I started with a vision.